Maverick News. The world is watching. In a universe full of ideas, we draw lightness from the dark to a place where opposites attract. Right meets left, positive touches negative, sparking an explosion of truth. Because politics makes strange bedfellows.
Another reason why my whole life, a lot of people say to me, well, you're working on the Kennedy campaign. You're just parroting what Bobby tells you to say. Not true. I'm one of those old school liberals, right, who supported Israel because my heroes, all of my political heroes throughout history supported Israel. The people I looked up to, the Kennedys, JFK, RFK, strong supporters of Israel. Many people believe that Senator Robert Kennedy was killed because of his support for Israel by a Palestinian, Sirhan Sirhan, who, when he shot Kennedy, said, I can explain. I did it for my country. I love my country. He's a hero.
That Sirhan Sirhan didn't kill his father?
Well, whether you believe that Sirhan delivered the fatal shot or not, the fact remains that he stalked Robert Kennedy for months. He was angry about Israel. He did walk into the ambassador with a gun that night, and he fired at Kennedy. Now, he may have missed his target. He might have been a piss poor shot. But he did hit 5 other people, innocent bystanders that night, 3 of whom were Jewish, by the way. And there's no doubt, and it's beyond dispute, that Sirhan was radicalized politically, and that he had a fanatical hatred of Zionist supporters such as Robert Kennedy, and he hated Israel. So he never denied that he did it for his country, but his bullet may not have been the one that hit Senator Kennedy by the ear, and that's still being debated by historians. But what's not being debated is that he was very proud to do that for his country, and that he is...
where he talks about, how the actual trigger man was a CIA officer, and, that's all out there, right?
The prime suspect outside of Sirhan was a rent-a-cop, a security guard that night named Thane Eugene Caesar. No one's ever been able to prove that he was working for the CIA, but he did have some interesting connections to people like Robert Mayhew, who had mob and CIA ties. He did do some work for Hughes Aircraft. So there are some tenuous connections there, but no hard proof that Thane Eugene Caesar was a CIA asset in any way. I'm not defending him. I'm still not sure what happened that night, if there were more than one gunman or not. I think there's a strong argument to be made, and this is what Bobby Kennedy Jr. has been saying for years, is that the case should be reopened and reinvestigated, because LAPD made a big mess of it the first time, and they did a lot wrong. I'm all in favor of a new investigation. But, there's no doubt that whether Sirhan meant to or not, he has become a martyr for the Palestinian cause. He's a hero in the Palestinian Liberation Movement. I don't know if you remember this, but on September 11th, actually, 1970, there were 3 aircraft hijacked by a Palestinian communist group. I can't remember the name of the group. It's a liberation group. They hijacked these 3 planes, and they demanded the release of Sirhan Sirhan from prison before they would turn loose of the hostages on board the aircraft. President Nixon said no, he wasn't going to negotiate. They let the hostages go, but then they blew up one of the planes on the tarmac at the airport in Cairo. There was another incident in 1972 where Senator Kennedy's eldest son, Joseph, was on a flight to Yemen, actually, and the plane was hijacked again by Palestinian terrorists because they knew that the son of Robert Kennedy was on board. In 1973, the Black September group burst into the embassy in Saudi Arabia at Khartoum, took 3 American diplomats hostage, again demanded the release of Sirhan Sirhan from prison, and President Nixon said nope, and they killed the hostages. So to this day, Sirhan was approved for parole in 2021. Governor Newsom said, nope, not going to let you out. So he's still awaiting. He's 79 years old. And I've been talking about Sirhan and writing about him a lot this week because it's the 55th anniversary of his trial for the murder of Robert Kennedy this week. So I thought it was newsworthy again. Certainly with the conflict between Israel and Palestine, it's newsworthy in that sense as well. But should he ever get released, he will be deported because he's not a U.S. citizen. And they will send him back to his homeland of Palestine or Jordan. He was displaced by the Nakba in 1948. And he witnessed terrible things. Sirhan, I understand his reasons. If he shot Senator Kennedy, he certainly shot at Senator Kennedy. If he killed him, I understand his reasons. I get it. He witnessed the bombing of the Damascus Gate. His brother was killed in that conflict. He saw a man disemboweled by a bomb. He grew up in the violence of the Nakba. Their family lost their home and was displaced and had to relocate to Jordan. So I get why he could be radicalized and be driven to do what he did. And yet it breaks my heart. And I worry right now for Robert Kennedy's son. We are in a condition right now that in this election year mirrors so much of what was happening in 1968. And we've got this war in the Middle East. We've got Bobby Kennedy strongly coming out in support of Israel at a time when many of his base and his supporters strongly support Palestine. And there's a lot of hatred that's being whipped up out there. As someone who works as a volunteer on the campaign, I see hundreds of comments a day on social media of people who hate his guts and who wish him harm. So I'm concerned for his safety right now.
Something. JFK, he pardoned. Are you familiar with the case of Hank Greenspun?
Yeah.
That's a very interesting.
It is.
Right. So this guy, he's like the owner of a newspaper in Nevada, right? And he's the guy who revealed that Joe McCarthy was gay. Right?
Was it the Las Vegas Sun? Was that his paper?
Something like that. Yeah. And he's like a big deal in Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time he's this big deal in Nevada, he's going to U.S. Army bases and stealing military equipment for Israel. Right?
That's right.
He's stealing tanks and he's stealing airplanes. And I don't know how do you pull this off, right? I mean, it's like, there's an airplane. One of the tanks just, disappeared. And he steals like millions of dollars worth of military equipment and sends it to
before somebody notices.
Right. Yeah. What's going on there, right? So then he gets caught, and so he, and he's given like no jail time. Right.
Right.
And, he's given like a very light sentence. And then JFK pardoned him.
Yes.
And gave him like a presidential pardon,
yeah.
right? So I would assume that what was going on was that this was like an unofficial deal. Like the American government basically said, we're going to give you this hardware, but we don't want we don't want to have to run it by Congress first. So you'll steal it or something like that. What do you think?
That's kind of my theory on that one as well. And JFK at least had, I think, because he traveled there in 1939 before it became Israel, he always had that unique ability that so few presidents have to put himself in the other guy's shoes. So he could see the conflict from both the Israeli side and the Arab side, and he got on very well with Nasser in Egypt. And, that's one of the things that Sirhan said that he was so mad at Robert Kennedy about, was he was like, why couldn't he be more like JFK? At least JFK was, more understanding of the Arab cause. But Robert Kennedy was so staunchly Zionist that's what drove Sirhan reportedly to do what he did. And, I wanted to another reason that I always supported Israel was because of one of my heroes. Dr. Martin Luther King was such a strong supporter of Israel. And Monday is Martin Luther King Day, and I wanted to talk a little bit about Dr. King and his support for Israel. I'll just play you a quick clip here of how Dr. King felt about it.
The whole world must see that Israel must exist and has a right to exist and is one of the great outposts of democracy in the world.
My Jewish brothers and sisters said to me amid anti-Semitism anywhere, and we don't need your support. I would still take a stand against anti-Semitism because it's wrong, it's unjust, and it's evil.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.